Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view Together. So, besides the obvious explanation of this film, where two people are to end up being fused by the arms or by the legs, we go on to find this is to be a movie about two people that accidentally fall into a hole that has water within it, where people are to ignorantly decide to grasp upon and take a swig of water out of, and that ends up coinciding with the process of these people needing to be magnetizingly or thirstingly through their bodies need to be smacked together. And so we within this film have these two characters, both Tim and Millie. Tim is to go on and be a dreamer, a musician who is to need to probably be forced to realize that his musical career is probably going to be dead. But we have Tim who is in possible hope that uh, that he is just not going to give up on his dream. As well as also going to have Millie, who is to be this person who is wanting to, I think, progress in her life, and she is to try and own a home with Tim and possibly get married, and is to possibly go on and work at this new job of her being a teacher, where she is to want to live in a small town where she can much more so focus on a smaller portion of kids to try to educate them to have a much more passionate job that she's to go on and like and enjoy and whatever have you. And so, as we find both Tim and both Millie here, we find out that these are two opposites that are to go on and attract. Probably to be just similar like magnetism. But the more that we realize that these characters are forced to together, uh, that they want to go on in more ways than one separate, and start to realize how they might not actually be good for one another, as Tim at some point is to realize that he is to feel imprisoned or is to have the inability to escape from Millie. Uh, and Millie is to go on and have her best friend go on and tell her, it's like, well, hey, what has Tim really done for you lately? Like, it seems that you're to go on and wanting to progress in your life, and it seems that uh, Tim doesn't exactly seem to be progressing in his. So, like, how long are you going to go on and kind of continue with a guy like this? But also we would go on to just go back to that song, "Don't Give Up on Us, Baby," because they won't. So we have this couple going on and being forcibly connected at the hip, literally, regardless if they are to go on and be in separate rooms, regardless if they are sleeping. Whenever this thirst or magnetism kicks in, they are going to have to deal with it and try to separate themselves and realize that they are to have to go on and seek some kind of answers of how to resolve this or get the answers of how to stop this so they can decide whether or not to stay together or break up. And so we get it to a point where eventually, like, there is an awkward part of this film where, yes, we do actually see connecting of ways of which that are to be of intimate nature, and but still that one same scene has to be awkwardly done and is to kind of give us that uh, because it takes place in a public area, which is to have, of course, Millie be thinking like, man, I could have been arrested, we could have been arrested, da 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 da. So like she could have lost her job, blah 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 blah. Anyways, so we also go on and have like that awkward scene, but then also we're having some gross out things going on besides the whole thing going on in this film. So we have some things going on with rats in this movie, as well as also we have some things going on with dogs in this film. So I wouldn't come to this movie with a full stomach because maybe you might lose your lunch. But of course, if you've gone on to realize you had to make your way into a film like this because you wanted to check it out, then by all means, you could probably understand what you're probably getting into. And you may have a just a, a, a durable stomach of whatever. Anyways, but I honestly got grossed out about the whole hair scene. Oh my god, that was just like because I honestly have a gag reflex about that, and yeah, like that is just ugh. That is to really get me. So I definitely don't like scenes in movies that have anything to do with that because that just making me think about it just kind of activates my gag reflex. But anyways, in together, uh, we have a point where both Tim and Millie, regardless if they don't want to, they separate. And there's an interesting shower scene that Tim gets into where he's just in this trance where he just smacks into the parts of the shower. I'm like, man, oh my god. As well as also, uh, we have Millie while she's sleeping, where that scene ends up getting like very like, what the heck is going on? And we also go on and have them separating in the later half of this movie to try to get answers. And Tim makes his way into that back to that hole, and Millie makes her way to Jamie's place because they wanted to go to the hospital, and they start to find some answers there about what Jamie wants, and Millie going on and just thinking about Jamie, like, like this guy is really nice, and like, you know what, I am so insistent upon him intruding upon my house, and this and that, and like like this guy, he's just so like he's so warm and inviting, and yeah. So there may go on and be a reason for that, but anyways, so because maybe they're gonna go on and they're gonna find one another and just really find one another, find out about one another, find one another. Anyways, so but by the end of the film, it goes on to push us to realize, of course, where this movie is kind of building up to, anyways, which is to be like that either one or the other one has to kill one or the other, so that way they can save whoever the alive person is to have been left, or also that the two of these people are going to have to go on and get bare butt naked and just smash their body parts together and become one, because that could also just be a thing that eventually these two decide to do at some point within this movie. And there kind of becomes quite a bit of playing around with that within this film, and I really enjoyed this movie for going on and doing that kind of stuff, uh, to really, if they don't really quite know the definitive answer of what exactly to do, that they're going to try all the answers until they get it. So with that said, I think it's about that time to get the answers that we so deserve, by getting to the actual spoiler part of this review. So, with that said, also, if you're Spice Girl fans, you might enjoy this movie also. Who knows? But, anyways, I thought that was an interesting thing because I'm like, man, like, why does everybody like the Spice Girls? No offense to anybody who does. Like, I'm just, in my mind, I'm like I'd gone on to see a YouTuber who is seemingly a collector of Spice Girl stuff. I'm like, hey, cool. Uh, like if anything, maybe I'm just kind of um, just consistently seeing that maybe I'm missing out on something. I had watched the Spice Girls movies or movie, yeah. Um, like I like the Spice Girls probably just as much as anybody, even though like I aim to go on and just kind of have all different wide varieties of interests of music. But anyways, but maybe I'm just missing the boat about something, and I don't know. But anyways, let's move on and let's get into the spoilers of it all. Let's break this all down, and also tell you about my future possible question mark of reviews that I might decide to do in the future because people may go on and may be intrigued about these movies that I may go on and talk about in the future of said channel. As long as I can go on and consistently keep doing this as I don't get freaking just discouraged or just worn down by the day to day process of doing all this. But anyways, specifically when I'm to go on and ever watch another stumble upon another review channel and just being like, okay, I'm just wow. But anyways, because man, how people can go on and just like be so successful and just no effort things. I'm just like, man, if only I could just switch places with you. It would be just so nice. But regardless, I'm sure a lot of them would probably go on and say it as like, well, hey, like it takes time and it takes this and it takes the perfect planning and whatever, and also a lot of people really have their own like things about what is their strategies and what have you. But anyways, just hey, like uh, I'm to just be passionate about movies and shows, and I hope that somehow shows that I at least have that. Regardless of how just stubbornly I'm to be just so I think set in my ways, and it's to be to my own detriment. But let's go on and let's talk about the future reviews. I want to go on and I realize that these movies are very obscure. But god dang it, I'm just so just let's try these things. Um, I wanted to check out a movie called The Tenth Victim. That is a movie of a future film where it seems that death has become much more legal, and it bizarrely becomes like a game that people are to be televising, and the winner by the end of this gets $1 million, and it is to go on and just be some kind of like weird visual of a film that I was to just be like, okay, it seems that there's enough there, there's enough meat on the bones that I could just be intrigued about, regardless of how uh, the movie may go on and play out. Like it is to go on and remind me of like Austin Powers and James Bond stuff, and just a number of things that I could probably just find fascinating about that film. Through the time that I was to just kind of quickly just thumb through it and just see if it had some interesting meat on the bones, bits of story that I can be into. Other than that, I'm assuming that there's going to be possibly some more horror stuff to come. It seems oddly that Frankenstein is to seemingly be a trigger word for YouTube, so I don't know what exact Frankenstein things will be going on and covering in the future. But Frankenstein may be a way to go. Young Frankenstein may be fun for me to talk about in the future. Uh, Oddly enough, I saw the word Frankenstein Jr. as a trigger thing, and I have no idea what that actually means. I'm assuming, from what I've kind of looked it up, it's a variation on Young Frankenstein, so no idea. For those of you that may love body horror, you may go on and like Human Centipedes or two, the stuff that I've reviewed in the past. I will probably go on and I will review forced to probably feel like I need to review the movie Society, I think, at some point. Oddly enough, also, there's a show called The Society or Society that I think at some point I may have to just kind of brush off and finish that series or season. Well, it's only I think one season or whatever, but I think I may need to go on and check that out just because of how it seems that that is to be some kind of trigger thing that people are interested in. So I probably will check that out. It's on Netflix now, so it seems to be a thing that people are interested in and seeing what that story's all about. And it's another random bit of show that oddly, like it's weird how people are just finding like the oddest shows that I've ever done on this because I seem to have been the only one who has done them. That is, I guess, be a good thing or a bad. I don't know. But it's nice to just find these random people that are going like, yeah, I never was to like think that anybody was to do this on their channels, and you're the one that did it. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't know if I finished that series or not because I didn't really pay much attention to it after a certain point because I just gave up because like there was only a certain number of views that were coming through every single one of those videos. So but it's really nice to see that certain people are just finding these very random bits of content that I'm doing, and I really do appreciate it. And like, regardless of how this may have just been a pipe dream, like it's to go on and also just be like something that I've always wanted to do, and it's happy, and it's happy. I'm happy. I am happy to go on and regardless of how this is to actually turn out, to just continue to uh, just find ways, even though there's some stuff about the process of doing this that I don't enjoy. I obviously don't like taking pictures of myself and slapping them on thumbnails, but that's the thing that I need to do. But I'm just like, dude, I don't want to go on it. I honestly just, I know I have to clean myself up and make myself look presentable, but like, man, like, uh, that's the one thing that I just wanted to avoid. Um, that I have to go on and come on here and wear specific outfits and find the perfect thing to fit all these perfect movies. And eventually, I'm just gonna just run out of um, just outfits and things to just convince people that I look any number of these characters. And it's, yeah, it's just it's getting really to the point now where I'm just like I'm seriously having to go on and needing to like go and find apps that'll give me just free clothes and whatever, just so that way I can find more clothes to wear for this thing. And like when that's starting to happen, I'm just like, I have to really, I have to really process my commitment of this and really feel that it's really worth it. And to me, I'm just like, well, I'm just passionate enough that I'm to just ignore everything else, regardless if it's logically um, like still worth it because I just love what I'm doing. So, or a lot of times I'm just so fascinated by finding these movies or having them find me that like Bashal, how the end result is to be that views are to come and go the way they are. Because so I'll just have to find that trigger word that will that will change this channel, and eventually, if that doesn't happen, then hey, um, I'm gonna try to find ways to continue doing this. Hopefully, at some point. Uh, at some point where it becomes still rational to continue doing this. But anyways, just talking on my butt. Anyways, let's go on and let's break down this whole entire film. Not waste any more people's time for me blabbing and ranting off like I always do in every single one of these videos. So, together, breaking this whole thing down, let's go on and let's get into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again. It's with this movie. If I haven't said already, the 10th Victims could be something I'm going to review in the future. The series, the Society, uh, Frankenstein stuff definitely will. Bram Stoker's Dracula will probably be something that I get to. I probably won't have the thumbnail clothes or whatever for that, but F it, I'll eventually figure that out when I get those clothes and those outfits. Eventually, I'll eventually have something planned. I have no idea. Just like I'll chuck something together and then come up with the actual legitimate plan of it somewhere down the road. Who knows? Just the thumbnail process. I'm just so like about at this point. I don't want to do the thumbnail process anymore. Um, but anyways, I'm just stuck with doing it. So, anyways, let's go on to full on breakdown of this movie. So in the very beginning of it, we have in the forest. So spoilers, everybody. We have in the forest, uh, people who've gone missing, and people within this town looking for them. Come to find out, a guy who is to own two dogs is to let them loose, and they make their way into this hole, and they find this hole of water within this hole. They drink out of it. So the next thing that we see is this dog owner who has this seemingly orange vest on and red hat is looking at these two dogs looking at one another, and he's like, okay, this is strange. So after a long day of trying to search for these missing people, we have this dog owner that is to put his pets within this tent-like area for them to rest for the night. And again, bizarrely, the two dogs are just looking right at one another, and the dog owner is to be very baffled here. The dog owner goes on to slap his his piece of paper of missing couple that he is to go on and eventually like show us what he was going on and trying to do, which will also help us when later on we see the whole Facebook thing that is a showcase about this missing couple, and like yeah, the whole story that is to be unfolding with that. So the dog owner, who I'm just calling dog owner now, I have no idea what to actually call this guy. I didn't look in the cast list to see if he actually has a name. He ends up being alerted by, I think, his daughter to make his way back to the dogs. And so, as this guy is to make his way to his dogs, he finds that his dogs are fused. We'll find out later the little Easter egg of a girl who is to draw a picture of her two dogs fused together. And Millie ends up asking this girl, is like, oh, are those your dogs? And she said, yeah, they were my dogs. And so yeah, that was just kind of an interesting little tie back to the early part of this movie. So we then fast forward here to skip through that, and we have Tim. He's looking through the records, and as he stumbles through the records to try to find something good to play possibly for this party, because he is a musician snob and he likes to just play records, vinyls, and what have you. He all of a sudden is to go on and make his way through seeing a bunch of pictures of both himself and Millie here. So there's a number of photos of Millie and Tim together, and it's, I believe that both uh, these actors, Allison and Franco, to actually be a couple in real life, I guess. So I guess they would to have gone on and already had some photos of themselves together that they probably used for this. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure people could probably go on and tell me the whole relationship of these two entire stars, and I know nothing about it. But it seems that they were a couple, so good for them. Good for them that has worked out, that the two of them just have gotten this job together. Moving on. So Tim goes on and finds a picture of him and his parents hugging it out, and that's nice. But we'll go on and find that there is uh, a dark story with both Tim and his parents, sadly enough. Anyways, moving on. So Millie is to make her way to figure out what exactly Tim is doing. And so Millie goes on to say to Tim, it's like, well, yeah, people think that it's cute that the two of us are wearing the exact same outfit. And Tim is looking up and down at Millie. He's like, oh, I didn't even realize it. So, like, the two of them, I don't think planned it. It just seemed that, like, both of them, like the same kind of clothes. So maybe that's what makes them attractive to one another. Or maybe they did plan. Maybe Millie planned it, and maybe I don't know. And it actually is kind of cute or kind of cool to see kind of couples dress alike, but very rare do I think that actually occurs. But whatever. But it is nice. Like I like that. But anyways, so Millie wants to go on and get back to the party, and Tim is like, okay, well, I'll meet you out there. So here's where we have Millie talking to her best friend. I believe her name is Kath or Kath. Kath. Doesn't matter. She won't be in this movie nearly enough. And then also, like, Millie and Kath will go on and separate from one another fairly soon because Millie is going to be moving out to go to this other house that is too far away from her friend. So the real dialogue going on here is for this friend to go on and talk about Tim and how Millie should go on and find a country boy so that way she'll get good and effed. And instead of really think that Millie should stay with Tim here. Tim is going on and speaking with his friends that are to go on and not even know that he is seemingly still focusing on doing something with music. It probably says a lot about Tim. But Tim, as he goes on and talks to his friends, they eventually come to realize that they do need a guitarist in some band. And really, Tim could be like, okay, well, I can fill that gap for you. And the guy is like, well, like, it'd probably take a lot of rehearsal, or, like, I don't know, like, you are quite a distance away from us, so, like, do you think it'll be easy for you to get to these gigs? And Tim is like, yeah, I think I can make it. So the guys are like, okay, all right. So figuring out a way to probably fit them in. So the next thing we see after that is both Tim and uh both Millie here. I immediately draw a blank. Both Tim and both Millie here start to make this speech to all of everyone uh, about how at some point they will probably make their way back here. That they will probably go on and from time to time just uh, like visit and what have you. But it's also just a long drive away to do a thing like that. And the more and more that Tim is doing this very long-winded speech. We are to all of a sudden see Millie get down on one knee behind Tim, and Tim is to just continue to just be talking until everybody is to just kind of look at him in a certain way, which pushes him on to like, okay, what's going on? And then he turns himself to Millie. Millie is to be down on one knee, and she is to have her hands b- like like this, and she opens her hand up as if she's gonna morph into a Power Ranger, I guess. No, Millie is to go on and seemingly without a ring propose to Tim because she probably assumed that he was never going to go on and actually do it, so she decided to do it herself. And Tim didn't quite understand if this was a like a proposal or what it was, so he was to go on and be a little bit frozen here and didn't quite give her an exact answer right away. And so Millie gets back up off her knee, and then Tim is like, "Oh wait, yes, yes, like of course, like," and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I just didn't, I did," because at first he goes on and asks if it's a joke, and Millie's like, "I guess it's not." So afterwards, after the party's over, Tim immensely tries to apologize to Millie, and he's like, "You know what, I suck," like, and so uh Millie is going on and stating to Tim, it's like, well, are we really still gonna do this? Like, and Tim is like, well, it's a little too late to back down now. And so they end up going on and they talk about like whether or not that they should split or whatever, but like it seems that the two of them are going to stay together here. And so uh and the two of them like try to kiss and they try to get intimate, and Tim mentions about how he drank too much, and Millie is just like, well, okay, I guess we're just not gonna have we're just not gonna have sex then, so I guess we just kind of go to bed. So they both say that they love one another. They take their own side of the bed, and then all of a sudden, here is where Millie starts chiming in with like, well, hey, like a lot of my friends are just laughing about you, and this and that, and that Millie used to say that uh, Tim resents her, um, and this and so Tim goes on and is to just be like, where is this coming from? And so all of a sudden, Tim is to be like very confused about Millie and how she's not really responding to him. So Tim then is to go on and kind of look at the opposite or the opposite the the other end of the bed here. And then all of a sudden we come to find that this other end of the bed just leads to a bed that has his mother in it and supposedly another corpse or another person, and then we see both of the beds fused together and we're like, okay, so Tim goes on and is to be so afraid of what he's seeing here, he tries to lift up the bed sheet to then only have his mother's face come out of the bed sheet and scare him again. So that is to, of course, go on and freak Tim out to where it wakes him up. So Tim wakes up and he gets up, and so Millie is such an early riser, it seems that she is to start to be unloading boxes coming from this trailer, and she is desperately trying to find a coffee machine. So Tim goes on and asks Millie here, it's like, wait, do you resent me? And so uh Millie is just like, and so Tim is to go on and just kind of be half awake here, and Millie is to ask like, oh, like, were you in your dreams looking for your dream girl, and this and that. So Millie asks if Tim is gonna bring something inside, and so he grabs Millie, and the two of them make their way into the house. So they start unpacking. Tim ends up finding this saw, and I personally have gone on to use a saw just like this, and in all honesty, you really have to like press hard to make, because otherwise it's gonna like jiggle all over the goddamn place. Um, but then also just the saw blade is just so thin. Like that's the reason why like you really have to kind of press hard to make sure you're gonna like saw through something. Um, and I cannot see a saw like this actually going through like actual, like I guess it could probably go through skin, but like probably not through bone or whatever. Uh, but again, probably like if it goes quick and that just seems weird that I'm trying to. Anyways, uh, but yeah, but I physically have held and used a saw like this bizarrely, um, and it's kind of weird to have seen a saw like this being used in this movie. But I guess at some point you just got to make connections with your life with whatever movie or thing that you're seeing. Um, but like Tim is defining this thing, and he's to go on and be like, well, like maybe I'm going to be able to use this for the porch and fix it. But then he goes on to make clear consensuses later on that he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't use this for the porch, and if they end up using it to saw through their own skin. So Tim goes on and asks Millie as she's peeing in the bathroom if she smells something. And consistently, Millie's like, "What? What'd you say? What are you saying? What are you doing?" So here is where Tim goes on and finds this chandelier, and he opens up the chandelier and kind of pulls it out a little bit, and he'll come to find that there is a number of rats that are seemingly stuck together within uh, this fixture thing, and he'll drop it on the ground because the rats seemingly one of them will still be alive. And so he goes on to go outside, take this thing, and he chucks it, and we have Millie that asks uh Tim here, it's like, did you actually go looking for that? Like, so because he knew exactly where to go on and find a smell like that, or he knew exactly where to look for something like that. Uh, so reasonably, Millie was just a little baffled about how Nick would go on and find where exactly that smell was coming from, and eventually, uh, Nick will go on and explain uh, kind of how that possible story is to go on and kind of or that kind of happening of him finding those rats kind of freaked him out, and to remember that whole story, and he'll go on and tell Millie about it. So am I to lose something here? Oh well. Um, if not every bit of this movie is to be showcased here, then I must have missed some clips or something. The next thing we see is Millie making her way to this school, and she is to make a cup of coffee, and we have one teacher turning to Millie and being like, "Oh, did you just use that bag?" And Millie was like, "Well, yeah, I thought that this was just a bag for everyone." And so we all of a sudden have Jamie who's pouring a cup of coffee also, and he turns to Millie. It's like, "Well, hey, did you want sugar? Did you want this? And you want that?" And so Millie is like, "Well, I guess I'm in a little bit of trouble." And Jamie's like, "Well, like, hey, that's just Carol." And like, uh, and she's just upset because that's an old bag and she's an old bag. So yeah, so really between the two of them, like they break the ice, they introduce one another, they say that the name is Jamie and Millie, and Jamie is to state that he was the one that was in the hiring committee of Millie because he knows about her, and because of her resume, like he thought that she was probably overqualified, and it's really nice that she's making her way here to work in this place. So here's where Millie breaks it to Jamie that she is to want to go on and want to work in this kind of schooling because it's a much more smaller scale, but she can help out students more individually. And Jamie is to realize that, oh my god, this girl is passionate. Wow, what amazing thing that I forgot that people can go on and feel about the education system. So Jamie is to go on and ask Millie here if she's gone on uh, to like settle down already, that she's found a new place because she had to move here, and Jamie is to go on and ask, like, well, do you have a husband or like a wife? Don't want to go on and think that you have any kind of certain kind of arrangement or partnership or whatever. So oddly enough, Millie just says that she has a boy partner named Tim, and like boy partner, okay, whatever. So they eventually make jokes about it later, and Tim is to also go on and or Tim Jamie and Millie are to go on and have this conversation, and she explains where she is to end up living. And Jamie's like, "Well, what a coincidence! Like you and me, like we're gonna be neighbors because I live over in the yellow house. So hey, like I guess we could both be neighborly then." So, but Jamie's to also tell Millie, it's like, "Well, hey, if you need anybody to kind of show you around town, I would be glad to help you." So Jamie's being overly nice here. He goes on to leave. So the next thing we see here is that uh, Tim is going on practicing on his guitar because he needs to practice to be able to be good at rehearsing with this band at some point when they do get this gig to go and have that be a thing. So Millie is to go on and see that Tim has his laptop opened. So Millie thinks that maybe they have internet now, and Tim is like, no, 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 like I'm having that guy come next week. So uh, Millie is to possibly think that the two of them can go on and be intimate tonight, but Tim is to go on and state that he needs to practice and he needs to focus on him learning these songs. So Millie's like, well, okay, all right. And so Tim is like, but like if anything, like how about we go on to that hike tomorrow like you like to do, and we'll go on and we'll do that. So like we'll do something as a couple. Like so uh Millie's like, okay, that'll be great. And so the next thing we see is the two of them on this hike. And of course they're not very familiar with this area, and it can probably be very easy for them to get lost. But we go on to find that there seems to be these unusual bells that are probably to tell them where exactly this path is to have them head. And so logically, Tim is to just to notice this bell and realize like, oh no, there's a path here. Let's just keep going, because this might just be like a really interesting um, just way to figure out how to just backtrack where we're going. So, of course, the two of them end up getting lost and they have no idea where they're going. And Tim gets out his cell phone, realizing that his cell phone has a compass, and he's like, well, that's north, and so maybe we should just start heading that direction. So, all of a sudden, there ends up being this horrible storm. And as the two of them start to make their way uh, through this through this place that they're in, we have Tim that falls into this hole. And then as Millie is to try to go after him, she falls through this hole also. The two of them fall through the hole together. So luckily neither one of them broke their legs or sprained anything or whatever it seems. It seems that the both of them were okay. So Tim goes on to say, well, maybe we should go on and maybe we should call for help. And logically, Tim can't call from his cell phone because his cell phone is probably very wet. And so Tim turns to Millie and says, like, hey, pull out your cell phone. And Millie doesn't have any signal. So, yeah, of course. So, but it's kind of really funny that Tim had a problem with his phone because, like, oh no, I left my demos on there. And so, like, eventually Millie will make a joke about it later. So, they're thinking about getting out of the hole, but then Tim turns to Millie. It's like, well, hey, like, but there's a storm outside. Maybe we should kind of just wait it out in this hole for a night, and then when it seems that things are all clear, maybe we should go on, and then decide to leave here. So they go on and they find this piece of wood, and they decide to try to make a fire. As it seems bizarrely uh, that Tim is to reference Man versus Wild, and that they've seen that show and that maybe they can make a fire. So Tim, it seems, is having a problem making a fire because of course he is, and so they realize within the hiking stuff that they had that they luckily had a bottle of wine that they can share between the two of them, and so Millie was kind of baffled by the fact because at one point Tim has a lighter. And so Millie is to ask Tim, it's like, well, hey, when did you start smoking? And Tim states, it's like, well, when we started moving here. And Millie's like, well, hey, I have cigarettes. So yeah, like I actually started smoking um, kind of recently too as we started to move here just because of the stress of it all. So the two of them, it seems, are to light this cigarette and are to smoke it. So we go on to have Tim do this explanation of this story about how exactly Tim was able to find the whole rat thing the way he did, and how Millie just keeps thinking about how he found that just so easily. And so Nick goes into the whole Tim goes into the explanation about how at one point he had gone on to have his father complain to him that there was a bad smell coming from Tim's room. And so Tim cleaned up his room, but it still seemed that there was this weird smell that his father kept smelling. So Tim really had no never mind about the smell, and so eventually he just thought nothing of it until his father one day had come up to him with a grin and had come to find that there was a dead rat within the the ceiling of Tim's room, and he never realized it. I guess the ceiling fan that he has was going on, and when every time he would put on the light, it would start to cook the rat, and never knew. So that is to also go on to lead into Tim's story about how also he had gone on to find his parents. So, seemingly at one point, Tim would go on to his parents' room and find his father dead, and probably had been dead for a number of days. But the mother had gone on with a weirdish grin upon her face, and that the mother had completely disconnected with um the fact of that about the dad being dead. But then also uh reasonably Tim, like when talking eventually to his doctor, had mentioned how he's not exactly like his mother. So maybe there had just been something that snapped with his mother that they could probably assume could be some kind of hereditary thing that Tim is to just straight up say that he's to not to have gotten or to be having for his life. So Tim goes on and is to explain the expression upon his mother's face and how just weirdly creepy it was. And so, yeah, like that is to probably really explain his commitment issues to Millie about how like seeing his parents or die and go crazy the way they did, how like that could maybe have traumatized him by seeing a couple act that way, and maybe that is to go on and be some kind of commitment issues. Who knows? But with that said, uh, that's what kind of finally helps us understand that goofy dream that he's been having in this movie. So, and of course, we'll go on and we'll transition here to have, of course, Tim having another goofy dream. So, Tim is dreaming here about the whole entire hole here, all of a sudden having it feeling like it has a heartbeat, where it is seemingly having the whole environment move back and forth as if it has a heartbeat. And Tim will then turn to Millie, and Millie will be breathing and so that is of course when Tim will wake up and realize that the two of them have like okay, like they spent the night there. Maybe they should try to get out of this hole, and so the two of them go on to find that their legs are connected together, and this is the first sign of them being attached at the hip, literally. So they find that their legs are connected together, and honestly, Tim just writes it off as some kind of weird mildew thing going on, and like he's just trying to say some creative thing to make him sound smart here, but really he has no idea what he's talking about. So like mold or mildew or some kind of weird kind of goofy happening going on here. So they eventually try and tear away their legs from one another, and of course they're to say how it hurts or this and that, and so eventually they figure out how to separate their legs, but then you see like the huge gash or scar between both of their legs at some point in the later part of the movie from them tearing themselves away from one another. So they make their way out of the hole, and so they make their way back to the house, and so Millie goes on and puts her phone in this bowl of rice because if you guys don't know, for if you were to go on and ever have your phone get really wet, you can evidently put it in a bowl of rice, and it is to uh, be able to soak up the whatever the moisture or whatever it was, so it can uh, lessen the damage of your phone, I guess. For some odd reason, people try to do that, and then also I've gone on to have certain occurrences where my phone will go on it and be wet, and it'll just destroy the phone, and there's nothing I can do. But anyways, because I've had that happen once, um, or I've just had it to where my phone has just gotten just, I'll drop it and it'll just completely just wreck the phone. Oddly enough, but it depends on what the phone is. Because sometimes I'll drop this bad boy and it'll be like nothing. This one. Haven't broken it yet, but like, like, fingers crossed that it still works perfectly fine because I need it to work. Anyways, so Millie starts talking about the possibility of like, well, hey, we should probably uh, figure out what we're gonna eat because there really isn't much food in here. And Tim makes the joke. It's like, well, we did have rice. It's like, so Millie has gone on to take a shower, and so she wants Tim to massage her, um, because like, hey, I've been in a cave all night, and so like, hey, I really want to go on and want you to massage me. I'm not quite sure exactly how clean Tim is because supposedly like she says for him to go into the shower. So I'm like, how clean is his hands? I don't know, like whatever. So Tim goes on and he starts massaging Millie's back, but then all of a sudden he just starts to massage it very weird, and like the massages start to not make quite a bit of sense. Also, he starts to like be pinching Millie or just like trying to hurt her in the way that he's massaging her, and eventually Millie gets upset and starts slapping him away. And in all honesty, like Tim wasn't at all like thinking about what he was doing. Like he just was to be connected to Millie, and he was just lost in it, and he was not even like his body was on its own mission as Tim didn't even realize what was going on. So Millie slaps him away and she's like, "Oh man, you just hurt me." And Tim was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't even thinking of what I was doing." So uh Millie looks at Tim. It's like, you know what? You don't look too good. And Tim is like, you know what? I'm just very tired. And so Millie just goes on and says, like, well, hey, like, well, I'm just going to make my way into town. How about you just go on and relax? How about you just take a shower because you probably smell? So Tim makes his way into the shower as Millie makes her way into town. So here is where Tim goes on and he just is like has his eyes rolling the back of his head. He starts smashing his way through the shower as Millie is driving her way through the streets of Calcutta. So we have Tim that after this whole shower thing is to occur and how like he is to be so baffled at what had transpired here, he goes on and speaks with his doctor, Dr. Mendoza, which I guess if you have to have a name of Mendoza, like that seems to be kind of a very traditional name that I've heard at some points in some movies somewhere. But anyways, so the doctor is to go on and eventually just subscribe for Tim to use Valium, but he ends up calling it a very goofy, weird other name. And so, as well as also the doctor is to mention about the history of technically Tim's family, and Tim is to say it's like, well, I'm not my mom. So the doctor really just goes on and is to logically to say for Tim here that maybe he should go on and just kind of speak to some friends or some family or this or that. And and so because if anything, like this guy is to think that this guy has probably spent Tim has spent way too much time like just kind of cooped up cabin fever at his home and maybe um the more panic is coming from him just spending too much time indoors. So but anything, um let's move on here. So uh Tim is to also come to find out that within this town there had been uh, a whole case about missing a missing couple because Tim had gone on to tell this therapist the story about him and Millie ending up getting like stuck in that hole, and the therapist is to state that there had been an occurrence of something like that happening with another couple, and so Tim goes on and looks up this couple and is to find out uh, their news article. And then also Tim goes on to find this couple, well, I guess one of the couple's Facebook pages. So Millie goes on to find uh, Tim online and and so Millie is thinking that Tim is looking for women online, and Tim is like, no, 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 no. Like uh, I'm just finding out that this couple has gone missing recently, and so we have Tim that is saying like, well, hey, like if I ever die, you can be the one that wipes out my social media, because her last post and his last post, like, or no, so Tim is to go on and think that looking at their last post about how she posted things and only got 23 likes on it, how like that would just be so depressing about that would be the last thing that she had posted and no one cared. And or no one really cared. So if anything, um they're just thinking about the what would be their last post. And if anything, like Tim then asks Millie, it's like, well, what do you think your last post would be? And Millie's like, well, obviously it would be BRB. I'm dying, or dying. So, uh, like, it is kind of funny how uh, Millie is to go on and tell Tim, as she is quite possibly thinking that she's dying by the end of the film. Millie tells him, it's like, hey, yeah, you better go on and adjust my post to write the words BRB dying. And And Tim is like, yeah, it's fine. I'll change it. I'll post it. So anyways, the next thing we see is that Jamie is getting a good old knock on the door, and Tim is to go on and think that there shouldn't be literally anybody making their way to their house, and doesn't quite understand why anybody is making a knock on the door. So they open it to find that Jamie is wanting to welcome this couple here to the neighborhood, and so Jamie brings a thing of red wine to the couple, and he thinks that he's going to go on a lead or leave, but Millie's just like, no, no, no. How about you come on in and we'll have you just like spend some time with us. And Jamie's like, well, I don't know if I want to intrude. And Millie's like, no, no, no. I am insist that you intrude. So Jamie makes her way in, and so Tim turns to Millie. It's like, oh, like Mr. McCabe, huh? All right. So like it feels that more than likely Millie hasn't told Tim anything about Jamie. I'm not quite sure. She could probably lie about how she has probably not said anything about him. But anyways, so Jamie is to go on and find the story about how they had gone on to be uh, left in the pouring rain in that hole, and so stating how they had completely got disoriented of where they should have gone. And so Jamie goes on and tells him, it's like, well, your phone, like, you do realize your phone has a compass, right? And so, like, oh, yeah, a compass? Yeah. So they immediately figure that out. So Jamie goes on and explains to both Tim and both Millie that the place that hole was to near be by, and the reason why there was so many bells also around that location, and they thought that to be weird, is because there used to be a church by that area, and both Tim and both Millie say like, oh, well, there must be some kind of weird cult going on in there, and so they eventually go on and they talk about where they thought the wave which was to transpire within that cult, and how exactly the reason why there is no cult there anymore is probably because they couldn't find any more followers and da 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 da. So, but come to find out also that the weather had took the building, and so yeah, that was the reason why that the cult, I guess, decided to just no longer exist. So but anyways, changing the subject, Jamie is to eventually go on and talk about how he really enjoyed the food, and that maybe he should be pushed to drop by more. And so we have Tim that states that he's a really good cook, and that uh, that Millie is to be a person that can kind of pick up the food and whatever, because she has a license and Tim doesn't. Yada yada yada. So and here is where Tim goes on and mentions that he feels trapped here and starts to make things very much more awkward. Uh, as also, Tim is to state how like he feels that if he needs to go anywhere, that he has to have a way of going to the train station or have it fit into Millie's schedule about them going anywhere. And in my opinion, in all honesty, like, there is Uber. Well, I guess if Tim doesn't exactly have any money on him, but still, like, Uber, like, I guess Uber is an option now. Like, this movie is done in 2025, but whatever. I guess, like, just Tim doesn't have enough money for Uber. But anyways, uh, Jamie tries to go on and try to make light of the mood if Tim is trying to ruin it by saying it's like, well, hey, like, if anything, like, it seems that you guys are kind of ones that can complete one another. As like, if you don't have one, then he has one. So, anyways, so Jamie eventually goes on and figures out a way to leave this whole situation, as logically, I'm sure Tim awkwarded the shit out of it. So, uh, Tim ends up going on to say that uh, that Tim feels that Jamie likes Millie, and at one point, both Millie and Jamie both hug. Uh, Tim didn't get a hug, so and as also like Tim states to Millie, it's like, oh yeah, and you're pretty charmed by him and this and that. So this leads to the two of them kissing, and they intimately continue to kiss. But then all of a sudden, as they try to pull away with one another or from one another, their lips end up stretching out and extending and and then slap away from one another. And Millie gets upset thinking that Tim had gone on to try to bite her lip, and Tim is to be like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because he assumed that maybe she did the same thing. And so, yeah, like, they didn't know how that happened or why that happened, but it eventually happened. So Tim tries to state that something just feels off. That ever since they've been here, uh, and so Millie's like, well, just stop making excuses. And and Tim is like, no, I'm not making. It's like something just feels weird. So Millie is just like, well, if you don't want to f me, like, just say it. And so Millie walks off. The two of them make their way to bed, and Millie is kind of upset because she's trying to sleep here, but her hair, it seems, is to be uh feeling like someone is grabbing it or laying on it. So Millie is trying to wake up Tim so he will roll over, hoping that that'll be the solution for it all. And instead, as Millie continues to go on and like feel that, like, hey, I need to get some distance away from my husband because my hair is just like, it's really hurting. So Millie turns the light on to realize that her husband is eating her hair, and it's going way down his throat at this point. So the two of them are wrestling away with the hair and the throat. And so Millie finally gets the hair out of Tim's throat. And like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? And it must just have been a weird, goofy mistake. It seems that somebody's sleeping and all of a sudden getting the hair caught in the throat and they choke in the night. If you go on and you watch Ghostbusters 2, we have uh, Peter Venkman that is talking to Sigourney Weaver about how they should sleep um, at some point, and Bill makes this whole bit of dialogue about how he mentions about how like uh how she should have her arm draped over him, or they could do it the other way, and he'll get his or get her hair caught in his throat, and he'll choke in the night. And I remember that, and of course, that is to just make me reminiscent of that movie when watching this, because again, I have to have watched Ghostbusters 1 and 2 about a bajillion times, and I can just quotes out of nowhere from that movie and just remind remember it and just connected with other things bizarrely. But anyways, cue up the following day. Tim is to have I think like a bandage over his like forehead, and then he goes on to realize that he has one last left bit of hair that he has to go on and just pull out of his mouth, and so gross. Let's get past that. So let's get past that, shall we? So Tim is to go on and realize he needs to make it to this gig. And so Millie ends up asking Tim, it's like, well, hey, are we going to talk about last night? And so Millie is still looking at Tim and realizing that he looks sickly. So it's like, well, hey, if you're sick, maybe we should stay home. And Tim is looking at Millie. It's like, I need to go to this gig. I need to go. So like, I just can't miss this train. We need to go. So we have Millie uh that drops Tim off at the train station. So Millie tells uh Tim here that if she could have gone on and drove him to this gig, like she would have gone on and done it, but she just can't. And Tim is like, yeah, that's fine. And so we have Millie that tells Tim, it's like, well, you know what? How about you go on and you just have fun with your friends, like, and how about you just kind of like get out for a night? And Tim turns to Millie. It's like, well, are you really mad at me? And she's like, no, just like we've had so much time together. Like maybe we just you just need a night out with your friends. Like just have fun. Like just be free. Like it's okay. And so Tim is like, okay, I think I'll do that. So Tim goes on and starts waiting for the train, and the further and further that Millie drives away, the more that Tim is to start to feel sick. The more that he is to try to take these Valium pills, and he's to think that he's having this panic attack or this problem. And so this is a push eventually Tim to go on and realize that he is to almost zombie like force his way back to Millie as she is going on and teaching this class. So Tim is to completely leave his guitar, his amp, his everything at this train station and just zombingly walk back to Millie without even thinking about it. He's just forced. He's just ma- uh, magnetically connected. So here is where Millie ends up seeing this young girl with the combined dog picture. And so oddly, uh, Tim here is going on and touching his back, and he is having some issues with his back. It seems that again, I think his body is hungry for his lover, so that's why his body is just malfunctioning the way it is. So Millie is on this laptop going on and speaking with Kath here, and here's where we have the conversation that Kath talks to Millie. It's like, well, hey, like, what has Tim done for you lately? Because uh, Millie brings up the story about how Millie will go on and mention to Tim how her favorite artist was the Spice Girls, and Millie didn't know at the time that Tim was a music snob, so he ended up bringing her uh, the Spice Girls album on vinyl, and like the two of them had that really good moment together, and that stuck out to Millie as like that's when she fell in love with Tim, and that's when she knew that like the two of them would be together forever, and so on and so forth. But yeah, but Kath is like, well, that's good that he did that before, but like, what has he done for you lately? So because Kath goes on and states that Tim is to be a 35-year-old white guy uh, who still thinks he can become a rock star, and like at some point he has to kind of realize that he has to just kind of like whatever dreams he has will probably never come true. Just I so hate this about this movie. I really do. I just really truly hate this. Like, yeah, just give up on your dreams. Like, yeah, just realize that reality is gonna set in. And you're freaking like, yeah, just yeah, whatever. Um, so Millie goes on and notices that Tim is making his way to the school, and Millie tells Kath, "It's like, hey, I gotta go. Like, I'm seeing Tim here, and I don't quite get why." So Millie rushes to meet up with Tim and like, hey, what's going on? And like, shouldn't you be on a train right now? And Tim is telling Millie, it's like, well, hey, I needed to see you. And Millie tells him, it's like, you know what, this is really effing weird. And so uh Tim is to say, it's like, I'm thirsty all over, and so the two of them start kissing, and Millie's trying to push away. They go into this bathroom, and they're just going at it. And so they don't understand why they're doing this, but they're doing it. So they all of a sudden are to try and pull away here. And Tim is to turn to Millie. It's like, well, hey, like, are you tense? Like, are you like, why are you like not letting me like let go? Like, and so Millie's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So Tim tries to separate from Millie here, and the further and further that they try to separate, it starts to hurt. All of a sudden, there ends up being a bit of footsteps that Millie notices by the bathroom stall. So Millie and they need to separate here. So Millie pushes uh, Tim away from her, and who knows what kind of damage goes downstairs there. But the two of them end up bleeding from the nethers. So Millie makes her way out of the bathroom stall as Tim goes on, and he is to hide his way by lifting his feet up to the turlet, so that way people don't see his feet. So Jamie has to go on and tell Millie that it's like, I don't know if you know this, but this bathroom is to be reserved for little boys. And so Jamie's like, oh, I'm sorry, just like, so Jamie turns to the kid. It's like everything's fine. Just go on and go. So all of a sudden, Jamie is to start to notice coming out of Millie's dress some blood leak, and Jamie probably assumes that maybe uh, Millie's having the time of the month, so maybe that's the reason why she was in the bathroom. But also, uh, Jamie, as he leaves, is to see a foot coming from out of the bathroom stall. So there's a number of things that like Jamie is to probably see or probably process or whatever. I don't know. So, anyways, both Tim and both Millie make their way back home. And Millie tells Jamie that what they did there, like she could have been fired for, she could have been arrested for. And so we go on here and uh let me pause here for a second. So the two of them are having a bit of an argument here, and the big thing coming out of this is that Tim is to go on and take more of the risks in the relationship, leaving, of course, Millie to not take any. And so Millie starts to leave, and Tim is like, well, where are you going? And Millie just says, like, well, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna clean up your mess. So Millie goes on and is to find Jamie at his home to try and apologize for what had happened earlier at school. And Jamie goes on and starts talking about how women have their female issues, let's just say, is how he phrases it, and that he doesn't want to go on it and go into much about anything else of that. That Jamie doesn't even want to clearly go into the exact um, thing that he is to have seen or what. Like he just goes on and just thinks that uh, Millie had her time of the month, and so that's all that he wanted to go on and just focus upon. But as Jamie realizes that Millie is fairly sad here, he's like, well, what's wrong? So Millie just states that it's been a really stressful day, and her and Tim just had a fight, and and she's saying all these things to Jamie, and she's like, well, I realize that this is not your real problem, and he's like, well, hey, do you want to come inside to talk about it? And she's like, well, I don't want to intrude. And he's like, well, hey, I insist that you intrude. Just kind of going right back to the well of that same thing. That it's like, well, hey, if you can intrude, I can intrude. So we can both intrude together. So Jamie is to go on and give her a glass of water, and eventually Millie finds a picture of Jamie and another guy, thinking that, well, like this could be a family member, it could be anything, who knows? So eventually we'll come to find out that Jamie was to be in love with another man. And eventually, Jamie had lost that other man. And we'll come to find out later that Jamie and that other man became one. I don't know if Jamie switched his name, had a different name. I don't know if he had a, who knows. Uh, but we come to find out that Jamie is gay, so it's like I guess he's definitely not going to be interested um in actually Millie here, but also we'll come to find out that technically uh Jamie may actually be interested in Millie just so that way they can fuse together, because Jamie had already gone through the process of fusing together with another person, so maybe he's willing to open it up, his body to another woman and have them all fuse together. Who knows? But anyways, that was honestly kind of the whole weird thing about this movie, as we come to find that Jamie was a part of that occult, because he has that bell on his door that connects with that occult, and so Jamie revealed that he was a part of that process to fuse himself with his lover, and they became one. So yeah, so that's the big reveal that happens at the later point of this movie. But so getting that to that way early, because I don't think it really matters now. But anyways, so uh, Millie goes on and leaves, and she'll need to go back to Jamie's place because she'll forget her keys. But so Millie makes her way outside of Jamie's house to realize that Tim is just standing there, and the two of them start walking, and so the two of them start holding hands, and they don't end up getting fused hands. Bizarrely, I guess that just they're holding hands and it's completely fine. So Tim is going on and getting messages from his bandmates as they're saying like, "Hey, dude, where are you? Um, yo, you get in okay? Like, how far away are you? Rehearsing in the room. You better be dead or something, dude." So, so yeah, so Tim is reading all these messages, and it seems that he cannot leave. Uh, he cannot leave. So we go on to find that Tim is going to be clicking through things, and then all of a sudden he finds this location spot on the map, from current location and then another location. I'm not quite sure exactly what that means. But anyways, so and then also uh, we get to see that the bells are off in the distance. So this couple that is missing has something to do with these bells. That is to assume that they fell into the hole and had ended up just like what had happened with our main couple here. So, and then Tim loses internet connection. All of a sudden, there seems to be a thrusting going on by this door, and Tim is weirded out. So, something is really pressing against this hard glass door, and so Tim takes it upon himself to get close to the door and start to move at a certain way, and so we come to find what this is that Millie's body is pressing against this door, and it's really pressing hard. So at one point we have both of their bodies being lifted by their fingertips, and so Millie comes to find a way to open the door, falls on top of Tim here. So, and this is all transpiring while Millie is still asleep, and she's having no knowledge of any of this happening. So, Tim ends up trying to wake up Millie while she's still sleeping, while on top of him. So, at one point, he has to go on and slap her awake. And then Millie ends up getting upset for Tim having to slap her. It's like, what did you just do? And Tim is like, you're asking me? Like, you're the one who tried to jump on top of me. And like, so Millie ends up asking Tim that maybe it's some kind of seizure. And he's like, well, have you ever had a seizure or have you ever sleepwalked before? None of that makes sense. And so Tim makes the observation that it must have been something to do with that cave. And that again, since they've come here, everything has just been weird. So Millie is just like, well, I feel fine. And Tim is like, well, that's because you're awake and you have adrenaline. And so, and that Tim's a state that it's probably getting worse at night. So, because their minds get tired and then their bodies take over. So, Tim is to go on and remember how the two of them had gotten to have their legs be attached together, and how Tim had just talked about how he'd explained it away about the whole thing of mildew, but he had no idea what that really meant, or he was just trying to figure out a way to just explain it away, even though it didn't make any sense. So we have where Tim has put his hand up and is to say like, okay, maybe we can figure out a way to just show you that this is just occurring. So Tim goes on and puts his hand up and tells Millie to do the exact same thing. Like, hey, I'm sure like both of us are gonna get magnetized, and like our skin is gonna try to like try to attach to each other as viciously as it wants to go on and do so. So Millie tells Tim to stay in the spare bedroom tonight, and Tim is like, "Well, good. Like, I think this will be good for us. Like, we definitely need to distance ourselves." And so Millie all of a sudden she starts to walk away, and then she stops, and then Tim is to go on and state to Millie, "It's like, well, yeah, like." You stopped, and I know why you stopped. I can feel your feelings because we're so connected. So the thirst, the pull, the thirst in our bones. Yeah, just like the trailer, the thirst in our bones. Um, Something inside us has imprinted on each other. We're sick, okay? I can't explain it, but it's in that place. It has to be. Uh, I'm going. Uh, I'm going back. So Tim is desperately wanting answers here, and Millie is just like she's trying to scientifically explain it away. So also Millie is thinking that like, hey, like her parents are coming soon for lunch, and like they have lives, they have things to do. So uh but also Millie is to tell Tim that she doesn't want him. And so that's to probably say that they're going to separate here. So here is where we go on to have the weird body horror going on here, where uh, here is where Millie's body like starts to contort, and if you guys don't like contortionists of any kind, or to look at these people's bodies and be like, oh, like I get it, you'll probably freak out, or not freak out because you'll not be watching this whole entire review, and that's okay. Plus, also the length of this is probably going to be end up being longer than the movie, so whatever, it's okay. So the two of them are thrusting their bodies down this hallway, and it gets really cool. But the two of them are just weirded out about why their bodies are uncontrollably doing this. So both of their hands end up getting stuck together, and we have Tim that is crying out to say, like, well, hey, Like, I have the Valium, I have the muscle relaxers. Let's go and let's get into that that shelf and open this up and get these drugs out. So hoping that these muscle relaxers will go on and separate us, and maybe it'll finally get us to where we don't have this problem anymore about the thirst in our bones and so on and so forth. So they go on and they just start just popping these muscle relaxers, and it's not working. So Tim is like, hey, how about we just snort them? It'll work faster. So they're snorting these drugs, and so they separate, and then they exhaust one another and they start falling asleep. I don't know if it's the drugs or that they just get so tired from pulling one another apart. I thought it was really interesting how uh, Tim was to go on and have like no shoes on, and so he puts his sweatpants over his feet, and then tries to push away from Millie, so that way their feet won't connect. Uh, but yeah, but he keeps telling her to push, 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 and then the two of them pass out. So the next morning, Tim wakes up taped to this chair. I'm like, all right, okay. So Millie is to swig uh, whiskey right into uh, Tim's system immediately as he wakes up, and he's like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh, great! Like, I didn't think that you're gonna wake up this soon." So she starts swigging whiskey right in his mouth, and then it starts to end up that Millie starts to feel the alcohol because considering she's connected to Tim here, she's starting to feel drunk. So Millie has to tell Tim here that she needs to cut them apart because their arms just like they aren't letting go here. So they have to cut their skin apart. And so Millie explains that once she goes on and saws their arms apart, that she's gonna run to go to the first aid and and bandage themselves and they'll be fine. So they're continuing to talk for a long stretch of time because they obviously don't want to do this. They probably are going to realize how painful it is. So, but they finally commit to this as Millie goes on and apologizes that she didn't believe Will at first, but now she believes him. And so Tim is like, just go, just do it, just chop off what you got to chop off. So they chop one another's hands away from one another, and like it's just skin to skin contact like this. So like it's just sawing in between the skin to skin contact. So it's not like something that they would like lose a bone or what like yeah. So it's like at least it's like a decent amount of just um like figuring how to separate the two of their hands. So the next thing we see them do is right after they cut one another, they're just having a meal, and Tim turns to Maylee and he has this bowl of food, and he's like, "Hey, you want some of this?" And she's like, "No, I have this. I'm fine." And so he's like, "All right." I think the two of them were kind of questioning whether each one of them wanted a thing of food, and neither one of them were to commit to anything but what they are to eat. So they go on and they look at there's only two muscle relaxers left. So they realize that they need to go to the hospital, hoping that the hospital will figure out a way to fix them, and also realize that they only have so many muscle relaxers left. So Tim turns to Millie and tells her, like, hey, a hospital won't figure out how to help us. So maybe we should go to that back to that hole and maybe we'll get answers that way. And so Millie's like, no, we need to go to the hospital. I just sawed off our hands. So maybe a hospital would be way better off. So The two of them are talking about this, but then Millie realizes that she had left the keys at Jamie's place. So Millie turns to Tim. It's like, well, hey, are you coming with me? And Tim is like, well, no, I thought that logically we should just create distance between the two of us. And so Millie turns to Tim. It's like, hey, don't do anything stupid. So Millie leaves, and Tim immediately runs into the house to get rope and a flashlight to go into that hole. So Millie makes her way to Jamie's house, knocks on the door, ends up going in. We then realize as she's ringing the bell to go into this house that the bell is to be the Colts bell. So it's like, aha, like there's something up about this guy. So Millie makes her way through Jamie's house, and I'm gonna explain this from out of the frame of which uh that to try to explain a way of what Tim is going through and what Millie's going through separately. So I'm gonna explain the Millie stuff first. So Millie goes into this home to come to find that there is a video going on in the background of some TV. So Millie goes on and watches this TV, and she comes to find that Jamie had gotten married with some guy, and in the background there is a picture of two people being fused into one. So Millie is to find that Jamie is to be a part of this cult that is to fuse people together. At one point, also, Jamie, when Millie and him were talking, Jamie goes on to a Plato quote where it talks that at some point there was a thought that God had made uh, people into to two arms, to two heads, to whatever, and then decided to then split that one person into two, and to force everyone to kind of look for their better half. And so we go on to have at some point us realizing that there's a whole photo that is to go on and represent that. So Jamie goes on to find Millie watching this tape and is to be wearing his cult like wardrobe, and is to realize that Millie is going to go through the process of being one like him because he had gone on to go through the same thing. And so Jamie goes on and is to cut Millie in the arm, and Jamie is to probably think that he can go on and fuse with Millie because the two of them have gone through this process, and so maybe a third person to be fusing with him. Like it seems that that was, I think, some kind of weird, goofy thing that was going to happen here. But Millie runs away with her wrist being cut and she's bleeding to death. So now with Tim, Tim goes on and makes his way into the hole and eventually goes on to find the picture of the two entities becoming one, fused into one. And eventually, Tim goes on to find the former uh, Facebook group, the couple that gone missing, has to go on and be fusing together. But it seems that when they are fusing together, man, do they look like some kind of horror story here. So this fusing couple is seemingly on top of Tim, And so Tim goes on and is to find this one weapon to jab into this fusing couple. And so Tim is somehow being able to escape from this hole, to escape from this fusing couple. And yeah, like this fusing couple, like one of the faces looks purple and one of the faces looks pink. Like it does not look very human. So I don't even know what this is. We have to assume that it's probably the couple, the hikers from before, but then again, like it just looks so unhuman that we don't even know what exactly this is. It looks human, so I guess we have to assume that. So again, I'm sure people will be like, "Yeah, what you're saying here is just stupid." Of course, of course it's the couple from before. So Tim goes on, makes his way out of the hole as he's grabbing from this rope and pulling his way out. He notices this knife that he had on him that he re-grabs and wipes the blood off and makes his way back to Millie here. So both Tim and both Millie seems to know a little bit more than what they had known prior about what is transpiring here. And so Millie wants Tim to stay away from her because she knows and he knows that they are going to legit like uh want to magnetizingly, that's not a word, magnetically, that's probably a better word, fuse together here. So Millie doesn't want that, so of course she's trying to avoid it, but their bodies, it seems, will not want to avoid it as they're getting so close to flying towards one another as Tim grabs this pole and Millie grabs this piece of wood that looks like a somewhat of a bench, it looks like. So the two of them are holding on for dear life. We also have Millie who's bleeding, and her blood, I think, is making its way to Tim. So they go on, they have to realize that they can't fight this forever, and that Tim is to state that there's a possibility that he can go on and at this point need to have this only end one way. And Tim is willing to take a knife to his throat to sacrifice himself so he can save his woman. But then also, Tim is to go on one knee and propose to Millie here. And Millie looks at Tim and it's like, you gotta be effing kidding me. So, uh, Tim goes on to talk about how he was miserable and he was incomplete without Millie, and that he was to go on and think of some other life when all of his dreams actually came true by being with Millie, and that he did not need to be a musician and he did not need to have all these other things. He just needed Millie, and that's all he needed. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. So, but anyways, as Tim is to go on and take his knife and put it against his throat, realizing that he wants to save Millie by ending himself. And so Millie does not want to go on and let Tim do this, as well as also Tim doesn't know about how Millie has gone on to already cut herself because of Jamie. So Tim then realizes that Millie is bleeding from the arm, and so she falls, and Tim grabs her, and it seems that they're not so easily fusing together. bizarrely. But so uh Millie tells Tim to change her post to BRB dying, and Tim is like, okay, I'll do that, I'll do that. So, but Tim is still trying to keep Millie awake, try to keep her alive. So, the next thing we see is that Millie is back awake. And so Tim explains that he fused his hand with hers so that way it would stop the bleeding. And so Tim tells Millie that he cannot let her go. And so what Tim does is he ends up getting the Spice Girls album, and the two of them start dancing. And so here's where the two of them decide to just fuse into one. The two of them decide that they're going to dance it out. They're going to have one final dance. They're going to get butt naked, and they are just going to go on and become one person. And so they fuse into becoming one person, and the next thing we go on and see here is that uh, uh, Millie's parents are to be making their way to Millie and Tim's house here. So they notice the bit of blood on the driveway, but they just continue on to the house. They're kind of like, okay, what is going on here? So the parents make their way to the door and they knock on it. And so a person is to go on and answer the door. And it ends up being a fusion between both him and both Millie. And it ends up being a completely different person. So that is how the movie is to go on and end. And I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can put this up as a review. Let me know in the comments below what you feel about this movie or whatever and other things because it would help out the channel and help out the comments of sections of having those things exist. Uh, Whatever you want to go on and do, subscribe or whatever, because you're logically to have gone on and watched this whole entire video because you didn't. Or maybe you did, surprisingly, and I'm to just be flattered that you were to go on and take that kind of time because I do appreciate it. Uh, but hey, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want. If you don't feel that this channel is good enough, then don't subscribe. But hey, if like it does eventually benefit me if enough people subscribe to this channel. But hey, I get it. I get that really. Um, any number of things could go on and have people have no interest in what I go on and do here. But uh, thank you for going on and being a part of this channel in any capacity, even if it's just a click of one view. Bizarrely, I've gone on to have a plethora of people who or or just one person that is to go on and just consistently briefly watch a review that I do, seemingly consistently. I have no idea who that person is, but I appreciate that that person goes on and does that, even though logically in my brain I'm just like, well, that's just not gonna it's not going to progress the video, but like, hey, like, I appreciate that person willing to do that kind of progress, even though the video may not be for them or whatever. Um, I'm just gonna keep on, just trying to do my best at whatever I'm doing here, and hope that I am to get some kind of piece of content that people will be interested in at some point. Uh, here's hoping that Together may go on and be an interesting enough piece of content. But again, uh, I just got to keep doing these more consistently, and hopefully I can go on and have some momentum going to where I can definitely snowball into having a better track record of when these videos come out and have a better amount of videos coming out. I've been really hoping that at some point I can go on and not have these videos go on for so long, so I could probably do 2 pieces of content per day, but it seems to be very much a luck of the draw if I can go on and really get that. But most of the time, it's very long-winded because of all the rattling on that I go on and do here. Uh, but anyway, I just hope that eventually I'll come into something that's easy to talk about. So maybe I can do 2 videos in one day, so I can eventually have one spare video for the next day, so I can kind of pace out my videos better. But also, when I've actually had spare videos, I've kind of blew them all. So what a stupid mistake that was. Uh, because there were certain videos I'd gone on to not have to do a whole X number of hour process of doing them. So that was nice. But anyways, I'm gonna get back out of here because I've gone on to just ramble and rant for far too freaking long, and a lot of people going like, I'm not watching this for 2 hours. I'm rambling. That insane man who would want to watch a 2 hour video or whatever. But yeah. Bye, everybody. Bye, buddy.